Hey, what is up guys? So today in How to Make Money in Yu-Gi-Oh! We are going to be talking about what to do if a card gets announced for a reprint, because I get asked this question all the time, and this will help you whether you are a vendor and you have hundreds of copies of a card, or if you're just an average player, maybe have one or two copies and you want to get the maximum value for that said card. So there's a lot of things we actually have to take into consideration, whether it is a huge YCS coming up, because usually even if a reprint is announced and there's a huge tournament coming up, a lot of players want to play the best decks, and usually the best decks have the more expensive cards because supply and demand. But basically, there's a lot of things we have to take into consideration, but I just want to briefly mention that if there's a large tournament, sometimes even though the reprint is getting reprinted relatively soon, if it's not out before a huge tournament, sometimes the card can actually still maintain its value relatively well. So let's go ahead and actually use this little, I'm going to do this as a little scale. So let's say over here is 100% value, and let's say by my shoulder over here represents 0 value. So when the card is at 100% value, let's say it's worth its top dollar right now. I will measure that by my head, and like I said, 0 will be my shoulder. So let's say the card is at its maximum value. Let's say that's 100% of its value. A reprint gets announced, and like I said, depending on a YCS or if there's any large scale tournament that people want to attend, that can all be taken into consideration as well. But as soon as a reprint gets announced, a lot of times what will happen is it'll slowly dip in price right before the reprint, and then once the reprint actually hits, it'll dip pretty harsh, and then it'll slowly climb back up. Now it will never climb back up to 100%. It can climb up to 50%, or usually it climbs at about 30% of its value, because sometimes players just still want those high rarity cards, whether it's like the Fire Fist cards or any card where the deck is going to be still consistently played, or some people just are collectors and they like to collect cards even though a reprint gets announced. Excellent example, I don't have it in my hand, but Venomanaga is just still one of those really expensive cards, and it's because it was really, really hard to get. Like our first set of Venomanaga is still actually pretty expensive, but even though that card technically did get its reprint, like I said, the price initially dropped down pretty harsh, then it slowly climbs back up. Again, it will never climb back up to 100% of the value majority of the time. Like, well, that doesn't really make sense. Never, I wouldn't say never, but more than likely it will never climb back up to 100% of its value. It'll climb up just a little bit after the initial reprint, but it'll never reach its top point. Now, what I also want to mention is it depends where the card is actually getting reprinted, because there's a lot of things we have to take into consideration also. Let's take, for example, Ally of Justice Catastrophe. Now, this is printed in a turbo pack. Now, there's turbo packs, there's championship packs, there's tournament packs, there's a lot of different other packs. But pretty much as of right now, turbo packs are like the really only thing. They don't really print champion pack cards. That was back in the upper deck days. But anyways, sometimes when reprints come out, it doesn't always mean that the reprinted card will be a higher rarity. Now, usually people think that, an ultimate rare card will be worth more than an ultra rare card, but it's not always the case, depending on if it comes back in a championship pack. Even as like a ultimate rare card could be worth less than a super rare of the same card, but essentially it's a different rarity, and it's worth more because it's more difficult to obtain because it only comes in that special pack that's not usually available in stores. So Catastrophe would be an excellent example, a turbo pack Catastrophe, or just any turbo pack card. Essentially, even though it's reprinted, the reprint can actually be worth more than the original copy. Like I said, all depends on what actually it's getting reprinted in. Another thing I want to mention is that, let's say for example, Fire Fist Bear actually did get a reprint, but we can use this as an example because I feel like it's a relatively a familiar card. So let's say for example, like I said, Fire Fist Bear did get reprinted. One thing to take into consideration also if you're a vendor is, let's say Fire Fist Bear, you have a bunch of these, it gets reprinted. Now, one thing to take into consideration is picking up a bunch of other cards that are in the Fire Fist archetype, because once this card gets reprinted, everyone wants the Fire Fist's other card. So one excellent example I think that you guys can actually relate to was when Rescue Rabbit got reprinted. Everyone wanted the Caboozles and the Sabersauruses, even though they're a common card. I know this is not like a huge jump in price, but the thing is, once they got the announcement for Rescue Rabbit getting reprinted, Rescue Rabbit dropped in price. The prices of Sabersauruses and Caboozles actually just went up because there was no reprint announced for them, and actually they did get reprinted as secrets, I believe, and they're also Duelist League, but that's off topic. But basically, other things in that same archetype, if one thing gets reprinted, everything else can technically go up until the rest of those actually get their reprints. Also, I wanted to mention that some cards it's okay to hold on to, even though they won't ever jump back up again to that 100% price. Sometimes cards are just worth just holding onto simply because, or actually picking them up, I would say more so, once they actually get that reprint, comes out officially, and then everyone's able to actually just get the reprints. Sometimes players will just actually undervalue what they have as far as like the higher rarity, like for example card D over here. Once that got reprinted, obviously the secret rare dropped in price, but picking up some secret rares is not a bad idea because this is a card that will probably always be good in the game. Card D, just because it's got a pretty nice effect, and it'll always just be relevant in the game. Things like MSTs, just things that'll always be relevant in the game, are not worth not investing into if a reprint gets announced, because you can actually profit off of them later down the road. Also, I wanted to mention some things like the jump cards. These are actually just cards that usually maintain their value more than others, even if a reprint gets announced. Like Obelisk it's got like several reprints actually, but the jump one actually still maintains its value relatively well, and it's relatively inexpensive if you already purchased it at the jump price, which is basically the subscription to the magazine. Now there are other things like the games, the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. I don't remember what the actually, Dark Bribe comes in a video game also, but cards that come in a video game also relatively maintain their value. So going back to the same point as like the Turbo Pack cards, sometimes even if a reprint gets announced, they'll still maintain their value. Even like YCS prize cards, of course, like I said, if it's at 100%, it will not maintain its maximum 100% value if a reprint is announced, but it'll relatively hold much better than a card out of a booster pack. But that's always something to take into consideration. But if you guys felt like I missed out any little tips as far as what to do when a reprint gets announced, let me know in the comment section below. But for the for the TLDR, I guess, of this is basically when a reprint gets announced, it'll slowly dip in price. So if you want to get rid of it and you want to get maximum value for it, you just get rid of it immediately once the reprint gets announced. But make sure it's official by Konami. Don't follow any like blog or be like, oh, I saw this post on Dueling Network, someone said that this card is getting reprinted, because they might be trying to trick you into trading and getting your card. So make sure it's official that it's getting its reprint announced. Sell it immediately, or you can hold on to it, because sometimes what happens is that if it's a fake post and everyone gets rid of their cards, and then later on the reprint is not announced. And also, do not follow the OCG. Sometimes the OCG will get a reprint or in a structure deck. This is actually one thing I should have mentioned, but it's fine, we're mentioning it now. So sometimes in the OCG, they'll get a structure deck, and then we'll get that structure deck announced for the US, but we won't have all of the cards. Maybe they will keep out a secret rare Christia that should have been in a structure deck or something like that. We were supposed, like an excellent example of Christia, we were supposed to get Christia in that fairy structure deck, but we got it reprinted as a 10 later on. So Christia, first it dropped in price really hard because everyone's like, oh, it's getting reprinted. And then it shot up way high in price because it actually wasn't actually getting reprinted in that structure deck. But then the tin reprint came out, and then it went back down. So sometimes Konami likes to troll us with those things. But yeah, keep that in mind also. Make sure it's officially posted by Konami, whether you visit the website or, I usually make the announcements on my channel once we see like some leaked pics or something like that. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Good luck making some money on Yu-Gi-Oh! And determine what you want to do with your reprints, whether you want to keep them, hold on to them for an investment later on, or you can actually get rid of it immediately and try to get the most bang for your buck, which is what I would actually do. But sometimes when you have hundreds of copies, I understand it's difficult to move lots of cards. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day. Asian Eyes out.